process started, and then of course here with the award announcement. So congratulations officially as being named CRCF award recipients. On behalf of my entire team, we are really thrilled to be working with you and seeing where your technology and your projects go and how they really make a difference for the Commonwealth. So that is why CRCF is here, and we are excited for all of you on this journey as being CRCF award recipients. The purpose of today's webinar is really to go over what that means. So what being a CRCF award recipient is all about, what you can expect, what we expect of you. All of those good things are going to be topics that we're going to cover today. Starting with award acceptance next steps. So all of you have received the award notification email that came with several attachments. Of course, your award letter, but also a couple of documents that we are going to be expecting back from you. So signed terms and conditions based on the program that you were awarded funding under. Some payment information, of course, the important part, how you are going to be able to receive your monies for the project, and a blank W-9 form that needs to be completed. So regardless of what program you're under, who you are, these are the 3 documents that we need from all award recipients. The award letters are also, in some cases, going to indicate some additional information that we need from you. Some that we need prior to dispersing your monies, and some that are going to be required but not dependent in terms of being able to disperse those funds to you. The first is IP agreements. So these are documents that are going to be required in the case of dual or multi-party projects and or when IP is or will be licensed from another organization. So a couple of examples here may be a company that is using IP based on either their own or someone else's work at a university, or in cases where perhaps there are co-PIs from 2 different institutions. And it will be important to have information in place prior to funds being awarded of who is going to own the IP, whether it's one organization or both, all of those types of things. So this is going to be one of the most important things, if it applies to you, to have in place before funds are dispersed. IP agreements must be durable enough to satisfy the requirements of commercialization as they're envisioned for the end project. Options agreements will not satisfy the requirement. We are looking for licensing agreements. And importantly, CIT does not take ownership of IP nor provide a template IP agreement. So keep that in mind. I mentioned that based on the conditions of some awards, recipients may have other required materials to provide, and this can include things such as proof of the federal SBIR award if your award was pending but not yet awarded at the time of application. It could also include things like budget revisions, work plan modifications, things like that. And again, your award letters will stipulate if there are any other requirements above and beyond the 3 documents that we just talked about. The IP agreements and these other materials are going to be due within 60 days of the award notification. So that's August the 5th. And if there are extenuating circumstances and it will not be possible to provide these requested documents or the information by August 5th, it's going to be important for this, and actually for a lot of other things that we'll discuss, to keep CIT in the loop and to communicate that with us, because we're able to work with you on those types of things. One of the things that I have here on this slide is an action that CIT has, and that's to provide something to you. Specifically, this is going to be application feedback from the review process. It is something that is new this year that we have not done in the past, but that we recognize might be important. So as you know, all of the projects through CRCF go through a multi-stage review process. And those that rise to the top, so that's you guys, being awarded funding, there may still be things that were uncovered during the review process, whether they were administrative things that could be strengthened or improved upon, recommendations from subject matter experts or others on ways that you might want to think about the technology or the commercialization, or those types of things. And we want to make sure that you have all of that information available to you as you start your projects. So over the next few weeks, we are going to be pulling that information together and sharing it with you all so that you have all of the information you may need in order to have the most successful project, or when you come back to us in a future round for additional funding, that you can continue to strengthen the applications that you provide to us. So you guys can be on the lookout for that. So a few expectations of you as award recipients. So the first is that CIT refers to your project by the CRCF reference number that was assigned to you when your project, or rather when your LOI was converted to an application. So this is going to be that CP19, MF19, SBIR19 number that you've seen on your award and other application materials. This number should be used in any correspondence regarding your project. Please make sure, though, that it's included in the subject line of emails. So that will help to expedite the communications, make sure that we know what project you're referring to in any of those communications. University award recipients may have another number that was assigned by their home institution. This can be included in any communications that are stemming or originating from you all, or perhaps added to the email thread if an email originates with CIT, but CIT will not initially refer to or include this number in our outreach. I'm going to pause here for just a minute because I realized I didn't cover a couple of housekeeping items, and I want to make sure that everyone is on the same page. That is that all of the participants have been placed on mute for this presentation. And if you have any questions, I'm going to address those at the end of the session during the Q&A time. So feel free to use your webinar control panel, specifically that questions section, and you can type in any questions that you have. If we end up covering them during the course of the presentation, great. If not, then I look forward to addressing those again during that Q&A session. All right, so back to expectations. One of the things that we have this year, and is a little bit of a change from past years, is a central awardee portal. So I know that there are a few people who have been prior award recipients, and within the last couple of years, we set up individual awardee portals. That is a specific section that was only for you, that contained your award letter, your individual information, as well as the general information for being an award recipient. This year, we've amended that a little bit to have a central portal that is only covering that general information. So this is the reporting templates that everybody will use for their reporting requirements. It's a reference point for things like the terms and conditions. So regardless of program, all of the terms and conditions are available from that awardee portal. The recording of this presentation is going to be available there, so you can reference it now and then again throughout the award period of performance. So pay attention, that is within this presentation. It is also in the addendum to your award letter. That's going to be, I believe, page 3 for everybody, and you'll be able to access that. Feel free to bookmark it, come back to it at a later date, but should you need anything relating to the award, again, those more general items, that's where you can reference that information. The portal is a one-way communication, so we are able to push things out to you, but you are unable to upload anything to that portal. So for example, as you're submitting your reports, that's going to come to us through email. I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. But again, this is our way to disseminate information from you. Regarding project work and spending, just a heads up that projects are expected to be conducted based on the scope of work and budget as they were proposed and then approved. If you do need a project modification, those require prior CIT approval, and we'll get to that here in just a minute. Above all, make sure you keep CRCF in the loop with regards to your project. So if you're behind and a no-cost extension is needed, or on the flip side, the project is moving along more quickly than you envisioned, or perhaps you need more time to work on a report because something came up. We are glad to work with you in all of these situations and others, as long as we know what's going on. So keep us in the loop, keep us posted on where things extension is needed, the requested new end date, whether it will affect the budget, all of those types of things. Depending on the type of no-cost extension and really how long it is, a revised Gantt chart may be requested. Once approved, CIT will provide a revised reporting date, and most often this is just for the final report. I'm going to pause for just a second. I know there were a few people who said that they were not able to hear. Has that been restored? Wonderful. Thank you, guys. So again, no cost extensions. I was just going over the couple of bullets here at the top, so you didn't miss anything there. I'll get into some more details now that everybody can hear me. Budget mods are going to be the next, I would say, most popular type of modifications that we have. But what's really important is that prior approval from CIT is required for budget modifications that change any budget category by 20%. So what we are looking for here is an understanding, costs may change. You may realize that you need to put money towards a different focus area, or things have come up as you've been doing your testing and you realize that you need to pivot or shift a little bit. That's great. We just need to know about it ahead of time to make sure we're all on the same page and that the proposed new costs are in fact still in line with the spirit that the award was made in. In order to make that budget mod, what we ask of you is to provide a revised project budget. So that's the one that you submitted with your application that has the corresponding narrative. You provide that, we review it, and if everything's in line, that becomes the new baseline for the project. The one thing that cannot change unless it improves the percentage that was already approved is the indirect costs. So whatever indirect cost percentage that you have currently on your budget, that's what you are allowed to use, or it can better it. So for example, if more costs go towards direct costs from indirect costs, that would be okay. Sometimes we see other types of modifications. This includes personnel. Perhaps someone that you thought would be working on the project has accepted a new job. You need to, like I just mentioned, pivot your project scope a little bit. All of those types of things just need to be communicated to CIT, and we will work with you on making those changes. Our typical response time is within a week of the request coming in, but we do try to handle these more quickly whenever it's possible. But on the flip side, there may be times when responses will take longer. For example, when we're trying to issue the RFP and get that out, or during the award announcement time. So I have a few people who I asked about a week ago to give us a week, maybe a couple of days more, as we were trying to get the award letters prepared, feedback to our non-award recipients. Those types of things take our entire team and almost our entire focus. So during those times, it may take us a little bit longer to get back to these types of requests, and we just certainly appreciate your patience there. So one of the biggest things that we're going to talk about, and one of the biggest things that's going to be required of you as an award recipient, are reports. So all award recipients are required to submit a progress and a final report. Progress reports are typically about halfway through the project, give or take. That's based on each individual proposal in terms of your milestones, when you expect costs to occur, and those types of things. So we look at all of that information as we're preparing documentation and providing you with reporting guidelines. Final reports are always due 45 days following the project end date. And then annually, we are going to ask all award recipients to report on commercialization activities. And that's going to happen for 5 years following the project end date. With regard to the progress and final report, one of the documents that was attached to your award notification email was a document called Reporting Guidelines and Due Dates. And this is where we outline the reporting periods that are going to be part of your progress report, and then your final report, when those reports are due, when you can expect to receive payment if everything is on track. So all of that information is going to be part of that reporting guidelines and due dates document that you have. If there are any project modifications, well, really a no-cost extension, and we need to modify reporting deadlines, that's where we're going to do that and provide you with an updated copy. It's also going to be important to keep that document on hand as it relates to the reporting period dates. And as we get in required of the reports themselves, both the narrative and the financial, those reporting period dates are going to really come into play there. Delinquency in reports can result in termination of award and or your ability to apply for future funding. So like I said, this is a condition of your awards. So do make sure that you are providing your reports and doing so in a timely manner. As another reminder, the progress report does trigger the remaining funds for the project. So delinquency in your submission can delay payment to you, even if the project is on track with milestones and with spending. So progress and final reports, as I mentioned, have both a narrative and a financial component. All of those templates are available to you through that award portal. Narrative should be completed and submitted in Word format, and the financial should be completed and submitted in Excel format. While there are going to be separate Word templates, one for the progress report and one for the final report, there is only going to be one budget template this year. For those of you who are brand new to the process, you're starting out with us. With this new document, it's going to make no difference to you. For those folks that may have been with us as a prior award recipient, there is going to be a major change there, but one that we are hoping is going to streamline and simplify the process. So first, we'll look at a cover page. This happens to be for the progress report, but it's going to look very similar for the final report. What we ask is that there are prompts that are sort of preloaded, if you will, into the cover page. And we ask that you delete those prompts and enter your information. So where it says CRCF project title, you're deleting that and entering your project title. The same for the reference number, plugging in your period of performance, that reporting period, and contact information for the authorized representative and principal investigator. The reporting here, you'll see that the 1 is in that little square box there. Again, this refers back to that reporting guidelines and due dates page where we identify what the reporting period is that this particular report covers. For all projects, there is reporting period 1 and reporting period 2, 1 being the progress report and 2 being the final report. For the bottom, all of these also have a report submission date that you can click in and enter the date that you are submitting your report to CIT. For whatever reason, this happens to be the most missed prompt on the cover pages. So just I guess a reminder to pay attention that that's there on the bottom. So what is expected in a progress report? Well, specifically for the narrative portion of the progress report. These reports are going to be 4 to 5 pages in length, and that is exclusive of the cover page. All award recipients are asked to provide a high-level executive summary. Perhaps you're going to draw that from what you included in your proposal. And really the meat of the proposal or of the progress report is going to be on the progress that you've made. So we are asking that this be mapped to your work plan. That's where we really have an understanding of what you propose to accomplish, the activities undertaken, who's going to be responsible, those types of things. Your progress report can almost, and your final report for that matter, can almost lift that work plan and then expand upon it within the report itself. We ask that you be detailed. So this is where you're really going to get the length for your progress report, because we want to understand how you've spent the funds that your budget is going to outline for us. We want to know what work you've done, what challenges you've encountered, how you've solved those challenges, all of those types of things. When reports come in, our team are the ones who review those. So making sure that that if you have specific information that was asked of you to provide with your progress report or provide with your final report, this is outlined again in that one important document, those reporting guidelines and due dates. So in a couple of instances, we may ask you to provide more information on conferences that you attended, that you thought or proposed to attend in your original budget, in your proposal. We want to know how that contributed to the success of your project thus far. So a lot of times, those are the kinds of information that we've called out specifically for individual award recipients, again, right there in that reporting guidelines and due dates document. The most successful reports, the progress and final reports, will take that narrative work plan from their proposal, discuss the percentage of each task that's been completed, how the work has been done, all of that good stuff. So just a brief reiteration there. The final report is typically going to be 6 to 7 pages in length, again, exclusive of that cover page. You're looking at that same high-level executive summary, but this time including some results. You also are going to have a project overview table. And I call this out because your final report is going to be the start and if you will, the segue into the commercialization reporting phase. So the table that is part of your final report, you're actually going to see something very similar in the future commercialization reports that you're going to submit. And this is where we find data such as, has a new company been formed? Maybe you're a university award recipient and you've taken the technology and spun out a company. This is where we would learn that information from you. Have you received any additional funding outside the CRCF award or the matching funds? Report that out to us. So that table is going to be a really helpful tool and a quick way for us to assess some of these outcomes. The narrative and still the meat of the project is what happened during the reporting period and then comprehensively throughout the whole project. So again, be as detailed as possible, explain the activities that you've undertaken, tie that to your work plan from the proposal, discuss those results. All of those types of things are going to be, I said it here on the slide, the meat of that report. The final report template does differ from the progress report template, and there are going to be some additional sections that you'll see and that we ask you to complete. These are going to be for commercialization, a discussion of intellectual property that's been created, economic outcomes that have been realized or still expected, publications, and some conclusions or lesson learned from what you were doing. We also have, as part of our final report narrative, next steps. So in most cases, projects are finished by the time the final report is done. But we want to know what next steps are for the technology, that bigger picture. Where are you going to go next with the work that you've accomplished with CRCF? Maybe you still have some additional testing to do, and although it wasn't part of the project scope, that's going to be important in order for you to gain the interest of additional investors. Whatever it happens to be, we're curious to know what is next for you, for the project, for the technology. All right, the financials. So again, a new approach for FY 2019. The big change here is that we are combining the progress and final report budgets into a single document. So this will be submitted once with the progress report information, then updated and submitted again with your final report. And we are hoping that it helps to alleviate, I guess, some of the biggest challenges our awardees have experienced with prior templates, most particularly for the final report. So over the next few minutes, next few slides, we'll go through the template, and I definitely encourage you to ask any questions at the end of the session. If it's not clear, if we do need to connect offline, we can certainly do that as well. But since we have probably the most back and forth with our award recipients during the review process of final report budgets, I want to be able to spend just a few minutes with you now and go over that. So since the visual is on screen now, I'm going to call out some of the color coding. So first are the light gray, although it looks white here, cells, which are those first two columns, the budgeted amount. This is where the figures from your project budget, again, that one that was submitted with your application or most recent budget mod, will go. So you're going to plug in the figures exactly as they appear on that document. The next two columns are blue, and they're specific to the progress report, also referred to as reporting period 1. Your reporting guidelines document, we're back to that one, will outline the date range for the reporting period. Typically, it's project start through about halfway through the project. And again, this is going to align with what you entered on the narrative cover sheet that we worked on just a few minutes ago. The next two columns are green, and they relate to the final report or reporting period 2. With this approach, you keep building on your data between the progress and final report submission. And again, with the submission of your final reports, the idea is that all of the cells are going to be filled in. The final two columns are dark gray, and they are set to calculate your total costs for the project. They're pre-filled with formula, they can't be modified, and similarly, so are the yellow cells that appear at the bottom of the budget. Budgets are reviewed for accuracy and will inquire about anomalies. Again, low spend rates at the progress report submission may impact timing of receipt of the remaining monies, and we'll work with you to learn when you expect those first tranche to be spent, those kinds of details. Let's get into a little bit more. When you submit your progress report, the only information on the budget should be the CRCF reference number and project title, so those two cells at the top, the two rows, the budgeted amount, and the reporting period 1 or progress report expenses. The green final report columns will be blank, and the dark gray cumulative expense columns on the far right will reflect just what was keyed into the blue reporting period 1 columns. Progress report is going to be pretty easy, pretty straightforward. And we get into the final report. So when you go to submit your final report, again, you're building on the data that was entered for your progress report and submitting a more complete spreadsheet. So as we discussed, you'll enter costs at this stage into the green columns for the final reporting period 2. When you do the cumulative, again, those dark gray cells will sum the costs from your progress and final reporting periods to give you your total project expenditures. It's important to note here a couple of things. So the first is that the total CRCF expenditures cannot exceed the budgeted CRCF amount, otherwise known as your award amount, so the amount of funds that were actually provided to you to accomplish the project. If you find yourself in this situation, you'll notice that the total CRCF expenses cell has turned red, so a visual indicator. And in this case, we welcome you to shift the delta to your matching funds. So let's say you have a $50,000 award. Maybe your total costs ended up being $50,000, 100. So the total CRCF expenses cannot exceed $50,000, but we ask then that you shift the $100 over to matching funds because we want to see essentially the amount of effort, the total cost that it took to accomplish the project, but we were only giving you a maximum of $50,000. So in terms of the CRCF award, you're capped at that, but go ahead and show the remaining costs that it took to actually accomplish project work. And that can go over and above the matching funds that you proposed for the project. Or in the case of SBIR award recipients who are not required to provide matching funds, this could be some optional match that was required, again, to accomplish that project. So speaking of matching funds, again, the SBIR matching funds program does not require the one-to-one match because the federal award fulfills that requirement. So for those award recipients, your matching funds cells or columns throughout the reports will be blank unless you are providing optional match above and beyond that federal award. At the end of the day, any funds that have not been expended must be returned to CRCF. So this will appear in a little white box at the bottom right of your figures. You won't be required to take any action yet. So that figure will be reviewed by CRCF as part of our report review. And once confirmed, we'll provide you with instructions for returning those monies. So don't provide monies, don't send a check, don't do anything until we provide you with specific directions, because those directions are coming to us directly from the state. So it's important that they're followed to a T, if you will, so that we don't have any issues in depositing the funds or providing them back to the state at the end of the day. Lastly, just so everyone knows, and you probably recall from both the guidelines and the terms and conditions, but CIT has the prerogative to audit financial and/or other records associated with your CRCF award for 3 years following the project end date. Just a couple of things that we've noticed throughout the years in terms of reporting errors or things that award recipients have been challenged by. The first, and I'm really hoping that this streamlined budget helps to correct this, but that is that the final report expenditures and the cumulative expenditures are not the same. So the final report, and again, how we landed on reporting period 2, those are just the costs that are occurring from about halfway through the project or when the progress report was submitted through the end of the project. Those funds or those expenses plus your progress report expenses are what give you that cumulative total. So as you're looking at your budget and reviewing it before you submit, there should not be duplication or mirroring between your final expenses and your cumulative expenses. So just be aware of that. In the past, we didn't have any embedded formulas, and we often saw that as an error. So this is what led us to the approach that we're proposing to use this time. So hopefully it will be effective in that case. With regards to the narrative, again, I've stressed being detailed and discussing the activities that have been undertaken, discussing those challenges and mapping it to the work plan. Those bare bones reports are the ones that we go back to award recipients and ask for that additional information. So we can avoid that back and forth if you take the time when submitting the report to really be detailed, to give us the information about how you're spending those monies. What work have you done over the last 6 months or over the first year, depending on your period of performance and due dates, to spend those monies, to maybe you encountered a challenge, talk to us about that, but really be detailed in your report submission. As part of that, if there are any budget disparities or low burn rates, explain that. So again, costs can change. Maybe your equipment was delayed coming in, so you haven't had that big cost yet. Let us know, because that's going to be an indicator of the bigger conversation when the rest of the funds are going to be needed. Just as a quick sort of high-level administrative thing, but pay attention to your tense in your reports. So if you're copying information from your application into your report, just be aware that some of the phrasing lends itself to what will be done. Like, you may have prepared your proposal of "we are going to do this" versus what was actually done for the reporting period. So just some, proofreading things. So on-time report submission is the responsibility of each individual award recipient. CIT will not be issuing reminders prior to your progress or final report submission deadlines. So we definitely recommend that you set up calendar alerts or other mechanisms to ensure that you're submitting your report on time based on that reporting guidelines and due dates document. If the report is not received on time, we will follow up with you weekly until the report is submitted. We just ask that you save us the trouble. And we talked about earlier the idea of clear communications. So if something has happened and you're not going to be able to submit your report on time, shoot us a heads up. We are glad to work with you on those types of things, but knowing that in advance is definitely a lot easier than, following up with you a week later and having to go through that process kind of again and again. There are times when emergencies or other conflicts come up, so as those extensions are necessary, as a more convenient deadline would be helpful, be proactive in letting us know that. As I mentioned before, reporting delinquency can impact funding, both for your current award, that is providing the remainder of your funds, but also your ability to apply for future funding depending on the level of delinquency. It's important for you all to understand the disbursement process and how it works when we receive either your award acceptance materials or that progress report. So CIT authorizes disbursement to Virginia's Department of Planning and Budget. So we are permitted to make those authorizations once a month on the 15th of the month or thereabouts. The only exception here is this month, so June, because we have prearranged with DPB to allow us until Monday, June 17th to make our authorization. And this is to give you all as much time as possible to receive the award announcement, to pull together your materials, and for you to be able to collect funds and start those projects in July rather than having to wait until August. So this is the one time of the year that we have a different date other than the 15th, but that's pretty much a standard thing that you can count on. So funds that are authorized by the 15th of the month will be included in a transfer to CIT that occurs from DPB on the 1st of each month. When that happens, CIT's F&A department will then process and issue payments to award recipients, and that will typically happen between the 10th and the 15th of the month. It's important to note that if your address or your banking information has changed and you are still needing payments from CIT, please be sure to let us know. So this will ensure that there's no additional delays or costs that are incurred, such as with wired transfers. We want to make sure that we are getting you your money as quickly as possible. With that said, please be aware that delays can occur. So while we hope there are no hiccups, we have experienced some lag time in the past, which does affect our ability to make payments to you on the schedule that we've identified. But please know that we stay on top of DPB and continually indicate the importance of timely payments for our award recipients. In the case that there is a delay, we definitely appreciate your patience. Really quickly, I want to just let you know how the split of funds happens. So initial disbursements are triggered again by receipt of your award acceptance materials. And in that, 60% of your award funds will be released. Those remaining 40% of funds will be dispersed upon receipt of that satisfactory progress report. And then again, as we've already discussed, in some cases, particularly if that spend rate is low, disbursement will be provided when the initial funds are expended, and we'll work with our award recipients in that case. Just briefly, I'll touch on the annual commercialization reporting. This is the brief report, that outcomes table that we mentioned in the final report discussion. We will follow up with award recipients each year for 5 years following project conclusion. The reminder does happen with commercialization reporting because oftentimes our templates will change just slightly. So you can expect a reminder from CIT about 1 month before the deadline. The template is streamlined, the table, maybe there will be some additional bullets if you want to explain information in more detail, but we are hoping this is going to be not a big burden of your time. What we're hoping to do is to collect some information that shows the impact of CRCF funding. I'll get to that in just a second, but the commercialization reporting is really where we see those outcomes. They're often not realized during the period of performance or 45 days afterwards. But especially for life sciences, some other industries, we're going to see those results years down the line. And so that's why we continue to follow up with our award recipients. If there are multiple awards for a single organization or complementary projects, we are going to work with those award recipients on an individual basis to streamline even further the reporting requirements. So in these cases, it may be that a single commercialization report is desirable, and we'll provide direction or instruction in those particular cases. Should the award recipient organization be sold or otherwise acquired during the period of performance or following project conclusion, CIT will also advise if reporting responsibilities will be transferred to that new organization. So all of the reports go into CRCF's annual report. This is where we are able to demonstrate to the state of Virginia the impact of the funds that we have provided to you all and to those who have come before you. So data is aggregated. We do not share any individual information, but the information that's provided to us is aggregated to show the overall impact. So this could be funding that's been leveraged, companies that have been created, facilities that have been expanded, jobs created, new products that have hit the market, revenue that's been generated. All of those types of things are the important outcomes that we can present to the General Assembly and to the Governor's office. We are required to we are required to submit the report each year by October the 1st. And should you be interested in checking out the outcomes that we have shared, which really are pretty impressive, you're welcome to view the FY2018 annual report. And this is also available from CIT's website, from the main CRCF page. What's also important is that we would love to be able to share out your successes. So your successes are CRCF successes. We are able to push that information not only through our website, but also through our social media. That's Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. We have recently hired a new communications director who is really focused on these types of activities. So we are hoping to be able to spread more good news about what you all are doing. We ask that you let us know that in reports, but there's also an opportunity to communicate with us outside of report submission. So if something happens and a press release has been issued because of something that you've done, share that link with us so that we can push it out through our channels. Whatever it happens to be, we would love to be able to share that news. So communicate with us even outside of your report submission. One of the things that I want to cover, because we have gotten questions about it in the past, is about CRCF and taxes. So this is going to be primarily, if not exclusively, for our companies that are CRCF award recipients. And the main point that comes out of this is that CIT cannot provide guidance on tax requirements. So it's going to be important come tax time for you to work with your accountant on specific tax responsibilities, whether it's unspent monies from the award or taxable, or other questions that you may have. So these examples are based on questions we've received in the past. There may be others, but legally we are not allowed to provide any guidance. So that's what I really want you to get out of this particular point. CIT is required by the IRS to provide a 1099 MISC form based on the amounts paid. So this indicates a filing status as a partnership, and we have to report all CRCF payments as income for those people who have identified that on their W-9. Just a brief slide to show who we are as the CRCF team. So we are 4 people who are supporting this program, both in the solicitation and in now what is the portfolio. So you all who have won awards. Nancy is our Vice President, Research Investment. Myself, Jennifer Hiltwine, the Senior R&D Specialist. Heather Inga is our Senior Program Administrator, and this fall we brought on Jeanette Townsend as our Program Assistant. So you're going to hear from probably all these people in some form or fashion during your tenure as an award recipient. So how do you reach us, or what's the best way to reach us? So there are 2 program-specific email accounts, one that you're probably familiar with from the application process, and one that is going to be new as an award recipient. So the first is crcf@cit.org, and this is going to be the account for general program or project communications, if you need a project mod, those types of things. CRCF reports is really going to be where you provide your report to us and where we communicate through those. It's important to include your CRCF reference number in the subject line. We talked about that just a few minutes ago. And I recommend using these 2 accounts for the communications just to ensure a more timely reply. We can communicate directly. I know you all have my email address and contact information based on the award announcements. You're welcome to email at any point in time, but should you need a quicker reply, often it's better to use the general emails here. Just helps to expedite things. And that brings us to the end of the prepared remarks and into the Q&A. And I know there were some audio issues during the presentation. I do apologize. Hopefully you were still able to get all of the information sort of thoroughly and comprehensively. But if I can address any questions or you think you may have missed something, please let me know. I'll pause for just a second as those come in and kind of look at the questions that were brought up during the presentation. But I welcome you to ask anything that you may be wondering in order to be a successful award recipient. So give me just a second as I look through these and as you prepare your questions. So the first one is whether you need to do anything to get the review materials or whether you will send them directly. So there is nothing that any of you need to do in order to receive the feedback from the review process. We are working on preparing that information now and we'll provide it to each of you, again, like I said, in the coming weeks. Know that it's forthcoming, but nothing that you need to do to initiate that process. We have a great question here about disbursements. So let me clarify that all of the projects are split into 2 payments, so 2 tranches. The first is that 60% of the monies are provided once we receive your award acceptance material, so thus initiating the process. At the time of your progress report submission, and that occurs about halfway through the project, if the project is on track with milestones and with spending, the remaining monies are provided to you. So where we get into the monthly payments, there are no monthly payments. It's a lump sum of 60% and a lump sum of 40%. But CIT is only authorized to, well, let me back up for one moment. All of the reports are on different schedules. So it's based on the individual projects in terms of when your progress report is due, for example. So we are able to authorize your funds to DPB once a month. And the way that we have set up the progress report schedule is that these are due on the first of the month or the last day of the month. That gives us several days to review your report, to be back in touch if we have any questions, and then to be able to schedule that to authorize on the 15th of that particular month. So I'll use the example of, let's say your report is due on December the 1st. So your progress report is due December 1. CIT receives that on the 1st and we review it. Everything is in order. So on December the 15th, we authorize your remaining funds, that 40%. Those funds are going to be provided to you between the 10th and the 15th of January, so the following month. And these dates are outlined both in your award letter and in your reporting guidelines. So your specific information is going to be called out there. You can let me know if that doesn't clarify that question. So another question about the projects being conducted as proposed and using the same employees or labor costs provided in the proposal, and the answer is yes. So your project was approved based on the materials that you submitted. So the work plan or that scope of work, the budgets and costs, all of those types of things contributed to your project being selected for funding. If something has changed between January when you submitted your application and now when the awards were announced, let us know about that and what changes need to be made or have been made, and we'll work with you on those project modifications. So the short answer is yes. If there are changes of any sorts to what was proposed, be in touch with us in terms of what that may mean for your project and how we may need to modify those. In terms of the information contained in documentation that's already been provided to you, some of it has been and some of it hasn't been. So what I have done is curate the information from the terms and conditions, from the guidelines, from our FAQs, but also from our experience. So things like walking through the reporting guidelines. There are instructions with the budget template, for example, but I wanted to be able to provide you with additional details to really walk you through the process and how that evolved and what's involved in it. So most of the information you will be able to find within other resources, but not all of it. And that's part of why not only will these slides be available after today's presentation, but also this recording. So you are welcome to share that now with colleagues or others as you get started with your award, but also to revisit it maybe as you're getting ready to prepare your first report for us, to refresh your memory of really what's expected or what you need to do. So with regard to the budget reporting, whether you're reporting actual cash payments or accruals during the reporting period. So what we are looking for in your reporting, both the progress and the final, is to see what costs have been expended during that reporting period. So that could be cash that you have paid out to employees, that could be charges that you've made for equipment, whatever costs have been expended during that reporting period is what will be reflected in that budget. And one of the things that I want to call out, and the reason that I mentioned the audit, is that CIT does not require any additional information beyond the financial budget document that we went over here. So we are not asking for you to provide pay stubs or any additional information at this time. We use the information that you provide to us and expect that that is the accurate representation of costs during the reporting period and how things have evolved. But we do have that prerogative for 3 years after the project ends to audit those records. So we're looking for hopefully simplistic things this time, but that on the back end, you all are keeping detailed records that support the information that you're sharing with us. So a question about W-9s in the case of university awards. So in the case of universities, the award acceptance materials is almost exclusively, possibly even completely exclusively, provided by the Office of Sponsored Programs. And that office is very familiar with the CRCF program. And they are providing to us a W-9 that they actually already have prepared. This isn't something that I think is unique to CRCF. So the university has their W-9 prepared. They provide that to us, it goes on file. So it's actually a pretty easy process from the university perspective. In terms of perceived, the university will also determine whether or not it wants its payments, just like everybody else, via check or wire transfer, and the W-9 will help support that. So we are looking essentially that the W-9 supports that there is an actual business, whether it's the organization or the private sector company. So we have a wonderful question about already spent funds and whether that can contribute to the project match. The answer is no. So unless it was already approved that funds could be spent prior to the period of performance starting, that could be the CRCF award or the match, those matching funds must be unavailable until the period of performance starts and spent during that period of performance. Now, when it comes to things like purchasing equipment and that the purchase would be during the period of performance, but it would also be things like the time spent on the equipment. And a lot of folks have put that kind of in-kind match up. But funds that have already been spent are not eligible to be contributed as project match. So in terms of the payment options, I mentioned that there was a check option and a wire transfer option. The check option is mailed via regular USPS, and there is not an opportunity to provide a tracking number for that. So if you are worried about funds getting to you, you are welcome to select the wire transfer option. We have a number of award recipients who really don't have a preference in terms of how their money comes to them. And in those cases, the check is CIT's preferred method. So we are not dictating how you should receive your funds, but if you don't have a preference, then ours is to provide via check. These are really great questions so far. I'm going to pause for just a minute in case there are any others at this particular point in time. And just like the application process, you are welcome to send in questions at any point in time. So if I can clarify anything, please feel free to shoot me a message. Let me know where there may be confusion or opportunities to clarify, whether it's now or sometime down the road. Myself, my team members, we are glad to help you through that process. So whatever we can do to make sure that you're successful, just let us know. All right. Well, it looks like it's pretty quiet for the last couple of minutes. So if there's nothing else at this time, I'll go ahead and close this session. But I really appreciate everyone joining. If you want to share with colleagues, again, the recording will be available through that award portal as well as the slides for the presentation. And I expect those will be up tomorrow so that there's still ample time before the 17th to get in those information to us and all of that good stuff. So thank you all. And again, congratulations on being an FY19 award recipient. And we're really excited to be working with you. So thanks everybody and have a great rest of your afternoon.